look at a map of Saudi Arabia and you find the little country Bahrain, which is a little island off of the east coast on the Saudi Arabian side, you will find Dhahran or Dhahran, and that's where I was born and raised. It's next to the two major cities, Al Khobar and Dammam. So Aramco built different compounds. They built Dhahran, Abqaiq, Udaliya, Ras Tanura, and we lived in Dhahran. It was so interesting seeing the development of Aramco because remember, Saudi Arabia is a desert, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember the golf course that was all sand, and then I remember when they developed it into all grass and running around as kids trying to stay cool during the summer.
So you brought up that you grew up in a compound. Like, why was that? And what made that different from the rest of Saudi? Like, what was going on?
Sure, yeah, no, that's super interesting. So Aramco, the company, they had developed these different compounds. And these compounds were the living quarters, if you will, of its employees. They basically mimicked a city in Southern California, like Palm City or something. Like, for example, if I were to blind you.
Palm Springs?
Yeah, Palm Springs. If I were to put a blindfold on you and take you to Saudi Arabia and take you where I grew up and I took the blindfold off, you would literally think that you were maybe somewhere in Southern California.
Wow.
They copied the architecture around that. So there were houses there, there were recreation centers, there were schools there. That's where we went to school. And
this is like all in the bubble.
Yeah, all inside or around the compound. The compounds weren't small. It wasn't just for boarding.
Got it.
It was living. It was small cities. Now, outside of the compound, when we were growing up, women could not drive outside of the compound.
Okay.
Women were not allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia. Now they have movie cinemas. I think it was just a few years ago, like literally 2 or 3 years ago, where the current king of Saudi Arabia allowed movie cinemas. And I believe they played the Black Panther as their like opening cinema. There were no cinemas where I grew up, right? Now, we had one in the compound, but one of my funny stories, one of my culture shocks, and I think you know this one, Johnny, is I only thought that one movie was released a month because literally there were no cinemas outside of the compound, but there was one cinema inside our compound, but we would literally get one movie like a month. And that's what I thought. I thought that's how often movies came out. So when I came here to the United States and there were movies coming out all the time, I was like, what the heck is going on here? And not only that, but a lot of the movies were censored because that was another thing, right? It's holding hands in public and kissing in public. That you
in
don't.
the compound as well, or just outside, or
in
both?
the compound, you could get away maybe with holding hands, but no kissing or anything like that, like in public, right? Here in the United States, we go to a public park and hugging and kissing, and that's totally fine. You don't do that there. I also remember I'm a huge scuba diver, and I went scuba diving several times at the Red Sea on the west side of Saudi Arabia in Jeddah. And one time we were flying and we were taking off with Saudi Arabian Airlines. Now, when we got to the airport, a lot of the guys were wearing shorts. You're not allowed to wear shorts. Men have to be completely covered, all legs. Now, you could wear a short sleeve shirt.
Interesting.
But you could not show the legs. And I remember that we're sitting on the plane and there was a couple of guys wearing shorts and they come up and say, yeah, you're either going to have to leave the plane or take this blanket and put it over your legs. So they had to cover their legs. We made it out. We arrived. That was a hilarious flight, though, because I remember when we were landing, it was not announced that we were landing. I went up and used the bathroom. Nobody told me to sit down. And as I'm walking back to my seat, the plane is literally descending like super close to landing. And I'm like, oh, crap, I got to go to my seat. When you grow up in a completely different culture and you're from a completely different culture, and then you grow up with people with all sorts of different cultures, it just opens your mind up in so many different ways.
Head over to the Jonny and Hector Show playlist on YouTube to keep watching, or listen to the audio version on Apple, Spotify, or Google Podcasts.